The Tennessee offense responded in a big way. Quarterbacks played much better in Friday's scrimmage. Is Tennessee closer to naming a starting quarterback entering the new week? That and so much more. It's your Monday Locked On Vols.
You are Locked On Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good Monday morning, everybody. Welcome into Locked On Vols. I am your host, Cain. Thanks so much for being here, making Locked On Vols a part of your morning routine, your first listen, your first watch. Each and every single morning, we are a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every single day. Today's episode is brought to you in part by our friends over at GameTime, where you can download the GameTime app, create an account, put in the promo code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Scrimmage number 2 takeaways, some notes from what happened at Tennessee football scrimmage on Friday. Coming up in segment number 1, our lads, Tennessee's depth chart has been presented. We're going to go through and poke some holes in there, what I agree with and what I don't agree with in segment number 2, and then we'll get back to our Scouting the Opponent series. It's time for the third Saturday in October, Tennessee and Alabama. That's look ahead. That's scouting reports and the chances for Tennessee on the road in Tuscaloosa coming up in segment number 3. All right, so Tennessee has, in my opinion, I know what Josh Heupel said when he met with the media on Friday about, there's still some camp to go this week. But, I mean, again, I'm not a football coach. I'm not in the staff meetings, but you are entering mock game week this week, okay? Camp is in the rear view, right? You are entering mock game week this week. What that means is, for the most part, you're going to go through the same schedule, the same routine this week as you will on game week next week. So when you get to actual game week next week, nothing is new, nothing is foreign. You know exactly where you need to be. All this sounds elementary, but again, you got to drill that in there, like, repetition. That's why in individual drills, you do the same thing every single day. Tackling circuits, sideline tackling, run fits, all that and more. You do those every single day because, again, it just makes you sharp and sharp and sharp. You know exactly what you do until it becomes second nature. So Tennessee is moving on from true camp into mock game week, and scrimmage number 2 was kind of the culmination of that movement. And from everything that I've been told, everything that's kind of been talked about the last couple of days, and again, remember, media members are not permitted to view any of the scrimmages. It sounds like the offense had a great day of response. It sounds like the offense did a really, really good job coming back and ending camp on a high note. It sounded like the quarterbacks had a much better day than the quarterbacks did in scrimmage number 1. And remember, the defense is clearly ahead of the offense early in camp, and specifically this defense for this football team is going to be much better than the offense of this football team, in my opinion. So that came as no surprise there the early portion of camp. But what you wanted was growth from one week to the next. What you wanted was a response from one week to the next, and it sounds like Tennessee got that. Quarterbacks played much better. Sounds like Joey Aguilar looked the most comfortable and looked probably the best of the 3. But overall, again, Jake Merklinger had a much better football game, much better football day than he did the week before. George McIntyre, had his moments in that scrimmage as well. One of those moments, a bomb to Joakim Dotson for a touchdown. I believe that was on one of his first plays of the scrimmage. Joey Aguilar, Tennessee football actually put this out in one of the videos they put out. I mean, you saw him airing it out to Amari Jefferson over the middle on a post route. And so that was a long completion, and that was really, really good to hear. So it sounded like the quarterbacks did a good job. Joey Aguilar kind of settling in, looked the most comfortable of the 3, but, really overall, a good day. And that's kind of what you want. So what I'll get to here in a moment, will Josh Heupel name a starting quarterback tomorrow when he meets with the media for the final time ahead of game week? We'll see, but it's not been a matter of, in my opinion, if. It's just a matter of when, in my opinion, especially the last, week or so, really dating back to when they got him, right? He had to go out there and earn the job, but it felt like from the get-go it was going to be Joey Aguilar, and it certainly feels like right now that it's going to be Joey Aguilar to be the name of the starting quarterback for Tennessee. Could that happen tomorrow? Will that happen on game week? I don't know. We'll see. But it feels like Joey Aguilar is going to be the quarterback for this team in week 1. So he had a strong day. That was good to see. Sounds like they got some guys back from injury. Sounds like Mike Matthews did more in this scrimmage, made some plays. Travis Smith, who's had a really, really strong camp. Both he and Radarius Jackson sounded like he was on the receiving end of a couple of nice targets down the field. Overall, the passing game, vertical passing game, was very much present compared to what it was, the previous week. Sounded like Tennessee's offense got off to a much better start in this scrimmage than what it did in scrimmage number 1. And part of me thinks, well, was it tailored Because, again, you can kind of tailor and manipulate a practice script in order to make one side of the football win or maybe one specific player win. I haven't heard this anywhere, but it's kind of like, well, does the offense need some momentum heading into fall camp? Heading into mock game week? Do these quarterbacks need some momentum and some good vibes heading into mock game week? Well, I know the quarterbacks excel in this, so let's do this in first 5 plays of the scrimmage, that type of deal. Either way, you still got to go out there and execute, right? So I'm obviously not taking anything away. You still got to go out there and execute, and that's what Tennessee sounds like it did. So vertical passing game was good. It feels like the offensive line starting to kind of see some finality there. It feels like Sam Pendleton's going to be the center. It feels like Jesse Perry, who, again, I remind you, less than 2 years ago as a senior in high school, winning a state championship, did not do a pass block rep, right? They ran the football almost every single down, and he's had to learn and grow in terms of pass pro, all his Tennessee career so far. So as a redshirt freshman, it feels like Jesse Perry is certainly in line to be the starter right guard. So that's an awesome story. That's kind of good to hear there. Desan Brame, another day, somebody else bringing up his name. Desan Brame, again, made some plays in that scrimmage, and Josh Heupel pretty much said, like, he's going to be part of what they do offensively. And I thought that was, Josh Heupel says we hope that he's a part, or, a lot of times he'll say, hope that he's a part, I guess what I'm trying to say is a lot of times Josh Heupel speaks in generalities, but when asked about Desan Brame after the scrimmage, he said, yeah, he's going to be part of what we do this fall. So I thought that was pretty notable for sure. It sounded like Boo Carter, for the first time in scrimmage work, got some work actually with the defense. Remember in scrimmage number 1, Josh Heupel said that he was involved, right? Well, all he did was catch punts, and they weren't even live drills, right? Sounded like he got some work in with some of the reserves on defense in the scrimmage as he continued to try to work himself back, check all those boxes, earn his keep back essentially. So that's another step, in my opinion, that he got some work with the defense, albeit probably more with the 2s and 3s than anything. So that was good to hear. Some defensive linemen, to my understanding, were held out for some precautionary reasons. One injury note coming out of the scrimmage, and this actually happened before the scrimmage. It happened last week. But Daevin Hobbs has a foot injury, first reported by VolQuest, and he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. He's going to miss some time. How much time, don't know just yet. But you look at a position group that was super thin in spring, and then you got to a point in fall camp to where you felt pretty good about the depth of the defensive tackles. Now you're losing one of the more experienced players at the defensive tackle position, and you're left a little thin in terms of depth. So we know who the top 2 are. That's Bryce Neeson, Jackson Moy. Okay, who's tackle 3? That was Daevin Hobbs. Who's now tackle 3? Who's tackle 4? Who's tackle 5? These freshmen, Ethan Utley, Isaiah Campbell, they're certainly going to play. Sounds like Nathan Robinson's a guy that, if healthy, he's absolutely going to play. Sounds like Jamal Wallace has had a really good camp. That's good to hear, because there was a point in time where I didn't think he was going to factor in at all. Josh Snell, who was the transfer, feels like he's still got a little bit of a ways to go, but now with one guy down in the defensive tackle rotation, can he help? Can he contribute? So that's something to pay attention to. I hate it for Daevin Hobbs. He just continues to be injury-plagued. He's been hurt at least one point in time every single year, or has missed parts of camp and practice and all that. But hopefully this is not long-term, but it does sound like with a foot injury that Daevin Hobbs is going to miss a couple of weeks, miss some time that's going to result in game time. So anyway, overall, sounded like the offense responded the right way they wanted to. Ty Redmond got a whole lot of work at cornerback. He missed a lot, or he missed the entire first scrimmage. Sounded like they were mixing and matching a lot on both the offensive line in the second half of the scrimmage and in the defensive secondary. Just, again, trying to get looks at different combinations to see who fits best where, who can work best with who. If this guy goes down, can you move this guy over here? That's what fall camp is all about. So it looked like they were very much experimenting, sounded like, on the offensive line and in the defensive secondary, the back part of that scrimmage. So sounded like a really good day, a really good scrimmage day. Sounded like the offense responded the right way. Continue to hear good things about Dwan Morris. Again, he's probably number 4 on the pecking order at running back, but Dwan Morris had a strong camp. Deshaun Bishop, Peyton Lewis, Star Thomas have had good camps. This running back room as a whole, deep, experienced, and could absolutely be a strength for Tennessee, no doubt. So sounded like the scrimmage kind of heading out of true camp into mock game week was a success for Tennessee. So will there be an official? I think everybody knows what the end result's going to be. And I think we've all known, albeit had to go win the job, right? But I think we've all known for quite some time that you go out and get Joey Aguilar based on his experience, that's, and who he would be competing with no experience, that Joey Aguilar was eventually going to get the keys to the Ferrari, if you will, to the offense. Feels like that way then, feels like that way now. Could there be a starting quarterback announcement today when Josh Heupel meets with the media? We'll see. If it doesn't happen today, I guess it'll have to happen on game week. But certainly be on the lookout for today for a potential. I don't know if it's going to happen. I don't know. But Josh Heupel could potentially name a starting quarterback on Tuesday. So we will have to see when he meets with the media. All that and more coming up here this week on Locked On Vols. Our Lads released its Tennessee depth chart. What's that look like? I'm going to poke holes in the Tennessee depth chart. That is coming up next right here as we continue on this Monday. Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. If you're trying to stay on your top of your routine, whether it's workouts, long days on campus, or staying focused through back-to-back classes, hydration is where it all starts, and that's where Drip Drop comes in. When I'm on top of my hydration, I notice everything works better. My energy, my mood, my focus, even my skin, but enough fluids every day, getting enough fluids every day isn't always the easiest task. That's why I've been relying and I've been loving on Drip Drop. Drip Drop is a doctor-developed, scientifically proven for fast hydration. It is a perfect balance of sodium electrolytes and glucose to help your body absorb fluids quickly, delivering 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of a leading sports drink. Right now, Drip Drop is offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first order. Just head on over to dripdrop.com. Use the promo code Locked On College. That is dripdrop.com. Promo code Locked On College for 20% off your order. Stock up now before the heat continues to hit hard with Drip Drop. Hey guys, welcome back to your Monday morning Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Cain. Forgot to mention this in segment number 1, but you guys know it. We've got a mailbag edition of the show. Probably going to hold that until Wednesday of this week. And, of course, we'll recap everything that Josh Heupel said as well from his press conference on Tuesday afternoon. Got a crossover coming up with Corey Burton of Locked On Vandy, talking a lot of Tennessee, Diego Pavia, Tennessee Vanderbilt, expectations for Vanderbilt, expectations for Tennessee. We're going to talk a lot about the SEC Network, the Netflix SEC football documentary, Any Given Saturday. Going to talk a lot about that coming up on tomorrow's show, but we will have a mailbag edition of the show, probably do it on Wednesday. So you can go ahead and get in those questions, comments, concerns at _Cainer and at Locked On Balls. All right. So a website that I use for reference, okay, because I do, obviously in football season, I do a Monday column where, everybody's still talking about the game that happened on Saturday, but let's look ahead to who Tennessee has coming up. And I rely on a website going over personnel depth charts and stuff. It's called Our Lads, and I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's not new. I've used this website many, many years, and a lot of times whenever I'm doing off-season content, I'm like, well, what does the depth chart for Georgia look like? What's the depth chart for Missouri look like? I rely on the website of Our Lads, and I think they do a great job. Again, I use it for reference. Obviously, it's not perfect, and they released the updated version of Tennessee's depth chart. I believe it was on Friday, maybe Thursday, and so I'm going to spend this segment kind of going through and poking some holes in what I think is right on here and what I think is wrong on here. So again, it's not perfect, but it's a great reference point. But I did think since they went ahead and released their Tennessee version of it, that we go through and kind of see how they view Tennessee in terms of the depth chart. And so let's go ahead and start. On the outside, one of the wide receivers position on the outside, they have Mike Matthews as a starter, Travis Smith Jr. as a backup, and Trey Weary Jr. as a third stringer. I would say that's probably right. On the other outside wide receiver position, they have Chris Brazzell the second as a starter, Redarius Jackson as a backup, and Joakim Dotson as a reserve. I think the first two is right. I think Brazzell and Redarius Jackson. And remember, keep in mind, Travis Smith and Redarius Jackson, they're interchangeable, right? I mean, say Brazzell goes down or Matthews goes down, Smith could probably come in and play on either side, okay? But, basically Smith and Jackson are the two backups entering the season when all is healthy, I would assume. And keep in mind, too, Chris Brazzell is probably still not full speed, but it sounds like he's getting there, which is a good thing. But, Smith and Jackson have been going the entire time. But I would agree with all that. Joakim Dotson, whereas he is more of a slot receiver, so I don't think Joakim Dotson is going to be lining up on the outside if he were to get in a football game this fall, which I assume he will be at some point. Only 7 scholarship wide receivers, remember. Slot receiver, Braylon Staley is the starter. They have Boo Carter as the second-string slot receiver, and then Amari Jefferson as the third-string slot receiver. Again, you guys know my stance on Boo Carter, right? Like, I'm not saying it won't happen at all this year, but Boo Carter has to worry about Boo Carter right now, and Boo Carter's focus is doing things the right way and doing things what he needs to be doing, and he is certainly not getting any reps at wide receiver right now. Let's just leave it at that. So until we see it, until things are different in Boo Carter and, kind of where he is, I'm not going to count on Boo Carter to play any type of role on the offensive end. So I would take Boo Carter out of that equation. I would have Braylon Staley as the starter, Amari Jefferson / Joakim Dotson, honestly, / Tommy Witten, a walk-on former Catholic standout, kind of there in the slot position as well. So it's very unclear in terms of the Jefferson, who's flashed at points in times in fall camp, Dotson, who's come along, and Witten, who's kind of a veteran in this offense, obviously not on scholarship, but a guy that also plays in the slot position as well. Left tackle, Lance Hurd is the starter they have listed here. Brian Grant is the backup, and Jeremiah Hurd is the third stringer. I do not agree with Brian Grant being the backup. I don't think that would ever happen in a real game. Jeremiah Hurd is behind Lance Hurd, sure. But, as I'll get to in a moment, Bennett Warren would probably be that swing guy. Or they could bump out Jesse Perry and then slide Bennett Warren over the left if they had to. Anyway, Brian Grant, I do not see being a backup left tackle. Left guard, Sam Pendleton, which I don't think that he's going to be the starting left guard because I think he's going to be the starting center. They have Sam Pendleton at left guard, Sham Umarov as his backup. I believe Sham is the backup there for sure, but I think that's going to be where Wendell Moy starts. Wendell Moy, the transfer from Arizona, I believe he's going to be the left guard. Where they have at center, William Satterwhite the starter, Max Anderson the backup. I think they're going to have Sam Pendleton as the starter at center, William Satterwhite the backup, and then Max Anderson would be third string there. So I would flip Moy from right guard to left guard, slide Pendleton down from left guard to center, and then at right guard, they don't even have him listed anywhere, which is, again, we talked about it in segment number 1. Jesse Perry is not even on this depth chart, and Jesse Perry, if the season started today, Jesse Perry would be your starting right guard. Again, still 2 weeks to go. I understand that. But I think Jesse Perry has positioned himself to be your starting right guard. And he's not even listed here. At right guard, they have Wendell Moy, and then they have Gage Ginther. I would have Jesse Perry. I would have certainly Sham because he can back up both spots. And then, of course, Moy's got some versatility there as well. Max Anderson can play guard too. At right tackle, David Sanders Jr. and then Bennett Warren. I think that's right. But again, if push came to shove, if it's for an extended period of time, maybe you toy with bumping Jesse Perry out to right tackle, and you toy with bumping, Sham in at one of those guard spots. If it's for a series or two, maybe you just go straight Bennett Warren. Depends on if it's right or left as well. If Lance Hurd gets hurt, then you'll probably flip David Sanders over to the left side, and then you're kind of in this conversation as well. So you got some options, especially with Jesse Perry. That's kind of how I see that. At tight end, they have Miles Kitselman as the starter. Ethan Davis is the backup. That's true. We know both those guys are going to play. Jack Van Dorselaer at third string. They don't even have Deshaun Brame listed. I think all 4 of those tight ends are going to play. Obviously, I think Miles Kitselman and Ethan Davis are going to play the most. But I do think those 2 freshmen, Jack Van Dorselaer and Deshaun Brame, who Brame has had a phenomenal camp, I think those guys are going to play for sure. But Brame's not even listed on here. Quarterback, Joey Aguilar, Jake Merglinger, George McIntyre. I think that's what it's going to be. Now, again, if Joey Aguilar is the starter and he were to miss extended time, I think both Jake Merklinger and George McIntyre would play. Say Joey Aguilar has a helmet pop off, I think Jake Merklinger would go in. Just like last year, I think if Nico got hurt for an extended period of time, I think both Gaston and Jake Merklinger would have played. Running back, Deshaun Bishop listed as the starter. Star Thomas listed as the backup. Peyton Lewis listed as third string. Again, this is going to be by committee, but I think it's going to be Bishop 1A, Lewis 1B, Star Thomas 2, and then DeJuan Morris 3, if you will, but really 4. Flip over to the defensive side of the football. Defensive end, Tyree West listed as the starter. Dominic Bailey listed as the backup. Tyree Weathersby listed as third string. Again, they're all going to play. I think Bailey is probably the starter. Tyree West, but of course it could be packaged. Like if they have Rabbits package or if they have pass rushing packages, like Tyree West is going to be in there. But I think Dominic Bailey gets in there snap one, but Tyree West would be behind him. Weathersby, I agree. And then they don't have him listed here, but I think Marion Dye would be fourth, and I think he's going to play as well. Again, defensive line guys, it's all about packages. Like all that, you could be third string, quote unquote, defensive end, but you can be in there on a pass rushing package or stuff like that. They can bump you inside and have another Leo on the field as well. Defensive tackle, Bryson Eason, Jackson Moy, which again, they actually have the two defensive tackles as Bryson Eason, Daevin Hobbs. Hobbs is going to be out for a couple weeks, but it would have been Bryson Eason anyway with Jackson Moy. Daevin Hobbs would be the 3, and we kind of went over that defensive tackle depth chart. They have Josh Snell as a backup. I think Jamal Wallace, Nathan Robinson, Ethan Utley, and Isaiah Campbell would all be in front of Josh Snell if the season started today. That's just my opinion. But again, all those guys are going to play, especially with the injury. Leo, Joshua Josephs, the backup is Caleb Herring, and third string is Jordan Ross. I think that's pretty straightforward, and I think all three of those guys are going to play. Middle linebacker, Arion Carter, backup Edwin Spillman, third string Jaden Harmon. Wheel linebacker, Jeremiah Thielander, backup Jordan Burns, third string Jaden Pilati. I think those 6 are correct. I think Edwin Spillman would spell both Carter and Thielander, and I think he's going to play a ton. I don't think it's specific Mike Will. I think there's some versatility there. But sometimes Inge does play it that way. So, we'll have to see. But I think Spillman has versatility to spell both those guys. But I think those are the 6 that are going to play for sure. Cornerback, if healthy, Jermon McCoy, your starter. Colton Hood, your backup. Your other cornerback, Ricky Gibson, Jalen McMurray. I think that's pretty straightforward if everybody's healthy. Your star, Boo Carter is the starter. Jordan Thomas is the backup. Right now, nope. Jordan Thomas is not playing this year due to medical injuries, which is unfortunate. Your starter right now, due to the situation with Boo Carter, is Jalen McMurray. And I guess you would list Boo Carter as a backup, but Caleb Beasley could also play that. Colton Hood could also play that. But right now, especially with McCoy out too, it's Gibson and Hood are your starting corners. And then your starting star is Jalen McMurray. But again, there's so much versatility back there that I really, really like it. At safety, they have the 2 starters as Andre Turrentine and Caleb Beasley. I think it's Andre Turrentine, and I think it's going to be Idris Farouk, but I think Caleb Beasley's in that 3-man rotation. And they also have Marcus Gorey listed in the 4 deep. We'll see. We'll see who that 4th safety is. I would say it's probably going to be one of those freshmen, but again, we'll see. So, mostly accurate. There's a couple of things in there that aren't, but overall, I think our lads did a pretty good job of predicting Tennessee's depth chart. Again, none of this is official. None of this will be 100%, but that is how I would have the depth chart today, is how I kind of went about my business there, comparing my depth chart to that of our lads who put out their Tennessee depth chart late last week. All right, so as we continue on here on a Monday Locked On Vols, we'll get into the 3rd Saturday in October, Tennessee, Alabama. We will scout the opponent coming up next right here on your Monday Locked On Vols. Stay tuned. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head on to a ball game with friends and family? Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize that you want to be in the stands. You want to be a part of the action. That's exactly where GameTime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, even invite a bigger group to come with you. GameTime can make all of that possible. GameTime makes buying tickets fast and simple. Prices, they actually drop on the app the closer you get to first pitch. So they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying as well. So much fun with GameTime. Tennessee fans can buy tickets to Tennessee football at Neyland Stadium, Tennessee basketball, Lady Vols as well at the Food City Center, Thompson Bowling Arena, Tennessee baseball, Lindsey Nelson Stadium, Tennessee Smoky still going on right now. You can buy those tickets on the GameTime app this season. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, put in the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We got a final segment left of this Monday morning Locked On Vols. Again, probably not tomorrow, as I'm going to have a crossover with Corey Burton of Locked On Vandy. Really good conversation. Already recorded it. Had fun catching up with him. Probably do a mailbag segment on Wednesday along with Josh Ward and also reacting to what Josh Heupel had to say when he met with the media Tuesday afternoon. So that's probably coming up on a Wednesday show. Get into football season, baby. Show programming gets pretty easy, right? But we'll probably have a mailbag segment at some point on Wednesday. So go ahead and get those questions in. Leave a comment on the YouTube channel on this episode, @_Cainer and @LockedOnVols. Okay, so getting back into our Scouting the Opponent series, this week we're looking at the third Saturday in October the 18th. Obviously, Tennessee's not won in Tuscaloosa since 2004. It's been quite some time that Tennessee has won on the road. Actually, 2003, since Tennessee has won on the road in Tuscaloosa. Yeah, because in 2004, that was the last time Tennessee won back-to-back in this series. They won 2003 and 2004. Obviously, Josh Heupel's 2-2 against Vanderbilt. Both those wins coming at home. Josh Heupel's given fits to, at the time, Nick Saban defenses on the road at Bryant-Denny. In 2021, Nick Saban was beside himself, frustrated in the second half because they just couldn't quite slow down Hendon Hooker and Tennessee's offense. And then even in 2023, horrible finish, okay? Tennessee blew that game in the second half, but Tennessee led 20-7 at halftime. Tennessee was off to a really, really good start in that regard. Second season for Kalen DeBoer, and Alabama missed out on the playoffs last year. Not great, 9-4, 5-3 in SEC play. But remember, guys, Kalen DeBoer, 113-16 is his overall record as a head coach. Dude just wins. And, you know, it's tough scene in Tuscaloosa because of all the national championships and SEC championships and the standard that was there for Nick Saban. So I understand some frustrations. But Kalen DeBoer, in my opinion, is a pretty decent coach. But let's see what year number 2 looks like in the SEC. Very pedestrian, in my opinion, especially for Alabama standards on both offense and defense. Get a load of this. On offense last year, they were 7th in the SEC in yards per game. They were super inconsistent. First half against Georgia, boy, was that not the best offense in the world, right? Second half against Georgia, not so much. Losing to Vanderbilt, horrible. Losing to Oklahoma the way that Alabama lost to Oklahoma, was it 23-3 or something, 20-3? Just horrific. There was a pretty good stat line you could follow that would tell the tale of Alabama on a given Saturday. 7-0 when gaining more than 400 yards on offense last year. 2-4 when finishing below 400 yards of total offense. They did get Ryan Grubb back as the offensive coordinator. Ryan Grubb spent last year with the Seattle Seahawks. He was the offensive coordinator at Washington when he and Kalen DeBoer had a whole lot of success. So we'll see what that looks like. Jalen Milroe, for as talented as the third round pick was, there were some limitations in his game, specifically in this offense. A whole lot of inconsistencies. Ty Simpson looks like he's going to be the guy. We'll get to him here in a moment. But offensively, very, very pedestrian last year. And even on defense as well. Also, seventh in SEC in total defense. They allowed 320 yards per game. They were 4th in points per game, allowing 17.3 points per game, which is solid, okay? The points per game totals, the scoring defense was fine. What was really bad was, man, they were 11th in stopping the run. They allowed 138 rushing yards per game. That was 11th in the SEC. They only had 25 sacks. I think Kentucky and Mississippi State probably. It had to be Mississippi State because Mississippi State was so bad. I think Kentucky and Mississippi State were the only two teams that had fewer sacks in the SEC on the year than Alabama did last year. And that's just kind of unheard of, right? Only 25 sacks. They do return 8 starters. They had 17 interceptions alone from the secondary. Really strong secondary work last year. So the defense, they've got some building blocks certainly, but very pedestrian in terms of Alabama standards defensively. That was the Crimson Tide in 2024. A couple of transfer additions. I know there's more than this, but a couple to highlight. Isaiah Horton, Miami. I believe he's a Tennessee in-state native, right? He's coming over from Miami to go at wide receiver. Should be really, really good there for Ty Simpson. They're also adding Cam Dewberry from Texas A&M. He should be in contention to be a starter on the offensive line, probably in the interior. Some departures. Justice Haynes, running back, had about 500 yards rushing almost last year. He transfers to Michigan. And then, of course, Jalen Milroe, your quarterback the last couple of years. Not just with the arm. There was some inconsistency there, but he was a load on the ground. He scored 20 touchdowns, 726 rushing yards. Dude was a load on the ground. Of course, he was drafted in the 3rd round. Ty Simpson looks like he's going to be the guy. Now, there's a 5-star freshman coming in. There was a star that DeBoer brought from Washington to Alabama as well. So it's not like they don't have options. A lot of inexperience. But Ty Simpson's the guy. Was brought in by Nick Saban. Tennessee was in that running. Tennessee had a hat on the table there. Ty Simpson picked Alabama over Tennessee. But keep in mind, Josh Heupel had the job for about a month when he made his decision. Jeremy Pruitt was very much involved in that recruitment. But Ty Simpson's gone to Alabama, and in 3 or 4 years, I guess in 4 years, or 3 years, he has been a reserve, barely played, had an opportunity in 23, didn't seize it. Got a chance, I guess, in 23, didn't seize it. Had an opportunity. I thought he was going to play a ton. I guess he would have been a true freshman in 2022 when Bryce Young came to Knoxville, and that's the year Tennessee beat Alabama and snapped the streak. And he was like 50%. He could barely throw it in warm-ups, and he goes out there and has a phenomenal game because, he's just a gamer, right? But anyway, Ty Simpson's not had many opportunities. He's primarily been in mop-up duty, but for all intents and purposes, it feels like Ty Simpson's had the best offseason, the best spring, the best camp, and he's already been named the starting quarterback, at least for Alabama. That's what it looks like. He's going to have a lot of weapons at his disposal. Ryan Williams, all jokes aside, probably going to be at least, and probably is 18 already. Gosh, that was such a funny, long-standing joke last year following that Georgia-Alabama game. Phenomenal year. Best wide receiver, in my opinion, in the country, not named Jeremiah Smith from Ohio State. 48 receptions, 8 touchdowns, 18 yards per catch. Started off really hot last year. Didn't sour towards the end of it. Obviously, there was some inconsistency with the quarterback play, but I think Ryan Williams is a really good player. Jeremy Bernard actually led the team in receptions, where Williams had 48, Bernard had 50 last year. He returns. Returned their starting tight end. He wasn't anything dynamic last year, but they do return their starting tight end. Cain Proctor returns. They returned 4 guys on the offensive line with experience. Parker Brailsford, all SEC center, probably in line to be an early round pick. Defensively, they return a couple of linebackers who are fantastic. Dante Lawson, 76 tackles, 6.5 TFLs, 2.5 sacks. Josh Jefferson, 60 tackles, 6 TFLs, and 2.5 sacks. So, Alabama, I'm intrigued to see what Alabama's going to look like. I think up front in the trenches, I think they're going to be pretty good. What's Ty Simpson going to look like? I'm not sold on him. Can Tennessee win on the road in this series the first time in quite some time? We'll see. A lot of storylines. Again, I'll remain in the line of thinking the way Tennessee has played this game throughout the series with Josh Heupel. I like Tennessee's chances on the road against Alabama right now than I do at home against Georgia. I do. I think there's an opportunity there to win this game on the road, but of course it's a long time away. Third Saturday in October. Can't get here soon enough. Scouting the opponent, Tennessee versus Alabama. And that's what the Alabama looks like here from a fall camp lens. All right, that is going to do it here for this edition of your Monday Locked On Vols. Don't forget, we'll probably do mailbag on Wednesday, but you go ahead and send in those questions, those comments, those concerns at _Cain or at Locked On Vols. Will Josh Heupel name a starting quarterback on Tuesday when he meets with the media? We'll find out. Certainly feels like that's Joey Aguilar's job, but of course nothing's been named officially yet, so we'll see what that looks like. What's in store this week? Remember, this is the last full week of the offseason. This time next week, Monday, boy, it's game week. Getting into game week programming, all that and more. Can't wait. We'll be with you here every step of the way right here on Locked On Ball. Stay safe. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Tell the friends. Tell your family. This is the podcast for them. If you're a Tennessee fan, every single weekday morning when you wake up, this is Locked On Balls.